Hey everybody, welcome back to Launch Your Private Podcast. This episode is the final part of our special Roundup series where we're exploring 5 powerful ways businesses are using private podcasts to nurture, engage, and convert. Each Roundup of the series features a few past guests sharing their real-world experience around one theme. I asked each of them the same set of questions, and you'll hear their answers back to back so you can catch different perspectives very quick without a ton of backstory. Today's topic, we're looking at how creators are using private podcasts to support things like summits, bundles, and live events, before, during, and after the action. You'll hear from Claire Paniccia, Lizzie Goddard, and Erin Kelly, all experienced hosts who found creative ways to integrate private podcast feeds into high-converting experiences. They're going to kick things off by introducing themselves and sharing how they currently use private podcasts in their events. If you want to dive deeper into any of their work, we've linked to their full solo episodes for you in the show notes, as well as to links to their content and places you can find them. All right, let's get at it.
Hi, I'm Claire Paniccia. My pronouns are she, they, either one is fine. I'm a business coach for neurodivergent online entrepreneurs and those who don't fit the mold. I'm also the creator of the Annual Neurodiverse Entrepreneur Summit. So incorporating private podcasts into the summit, for the summit, I've always included a lifetime access private podcast in the All Access Pass. But last year, I started also creating a free version of the private podcast for all the summit presentations and stuff for all attendees. And then the presentations in the private podcast expire from the podcast at exactly the same time as the regular presentation video pages. So that was very cool and very popular last year. Got a lot of positive feedback about incorporating that into the summit. Last year was the 3rd year that I ran the summit. So I always am incorporating new things. And last year, one of the things that I was experimenting with was this free all attendees version of the private podcast. And it was very popular. So I got a lot of positive feedback about that. It's also a really great way to make the summit content very neurodivergent friendly and accessible in that way. So people were able to consume the summit content in the way that worked best for their brains and just around their regular lives.
Hello. So I'm Elizabeth Goddard and I'm a multi-offer online business strategist, course creator type of person. I host both virtual summits and digital product bundles. And I think I was one of the first people to offer a private podcast feed of the summit presentations with the free ticket and not just in the paid upgrade all access pass. And the result of that has been so positive, and downloads have increased each day over the summit, whereas people watching the video presentations have decreased.
Hi, my name is Erin Kelly. I'm the CEO and co-founder of MemberVault, a course and membership platform for creators and business owners who want to scale their businesses. So I have had so much success running summits with a private podcast from Hello Audio. I've done 3 so far. I will definitely be doing more. And they've been incredibly successful in terms of growing my list, rewarding our affiliates for sharing, and also for retention, because it is such a great way to actually get people to consume information quickly and take action. So I am a huge, huge fan of having a private podcast as part of the live summits that I have run. It has been incredibly successful and I've gotten so much feedback. So I am very happy with it as a strategy, and we'll definitely be playing around with summits overall, always having a private podcast feed, and then other, interesting new strategies for running events of different kinds using a private podcast feed.
Now that we've met each guest and heard how they're incorporating private podcasts into their summits, let's get into how they structure their feeds for these type of events.
So last year, the private podcast was mostly just used for the pre-recorded speaker presentations. And then I would also include the recordings of the live events, like the live speaker panels and stuff like that. This year, I'm doing something new and experimental, and I'm including some lead-up content that involves the sponsors. So I'm really excited to experiment with that and kind of humanize the sponsors in the eyes of the attendees as hey, they're just like us. So that's going to be really fun to experiment with. And that'll be part of both the free version and the All Access Pass version of the private podcast.
I mostly just use the private podcast for the pre-recorded summit presentations. But one thing I've done since I spoke with Lindsay about this on the Hello Audio podcast previously is to experiment with putting the sponsor live session replays on the free private podcast too. And those have had a much higher download number than any of the other individual pre-recorded presentations, which is just such a massive win-win for both the sponsors and I. Previous summits, I had those sponsor live session replays only available in the paid all access pass, which just wasn't maximizing the visibility for the sponsors. So I'm definitely going to keep that moving forward to put all of the pre-recorded summit presentations in the private podcast, but also the sponsor live sessions.
So far, the 3 summits that I've run, I've structured the private podcast feed in the same way where people have been able to binge on the content immediately. And so I haven't done the drip style. A lot of summits, what they'll do is they'll actually have the content only available for a certain amount of time, usually 24 hours. I've always just done open access to all of the sessions, bingeable for the entirety of the event. And I've been really happy. It's easier to set up, and there is less scarcity for people to upgrade to the all access pass. But in terms of keeping in mind that you're using this as a way to grow your list and build a relationship with these people and also engage your existing list, I've certainly seen summits be an excellent way for retention and engagement with our existing list, not just the new subscribers. You want to keep in mind their experience. And yes, you will make more sales if you gate your content throughout your event. But it's more complicated for you to run as the admin and the host. And it's also not the best experience for the people who are going through the content. So, I mean, at the end of the day, it kind of depends on your end goal and how you have your business offers structured and your goals with the summit. For me, I would always recommend, that open access, bingeable content via a private podcast feed for your summit event so that it's easier for you to run and it's way easier for your people to actually consume that content and then take the next step action. So yes, I think a lot of summits, the next step action that they want people to take is to buy that all access pass. For me, I look more at, what do I want them to do in terms of purchasing my business offer. So for us as a SaaS platform, a software as a service, we want them to upgrade to either our trial to our paid plan. And so that's going to be the thing that we're really pushing towards. And I know a lot of events, summits and challenges and all those kinds of things are usually run before a launch. And so you can think about that, like, how can I make the call to action for the next step that they're going to take instead of the all access pass could be included, right? Like if they upgrade to the thing that you're going to be launching and selling, maybe they get the all access pass, but there's lots of different ways to do that. And at the end of the day, I always try and keep things as simple and streamlined as possible and customer centric so that it's a really good experience for people with lots of opportunity for engagement and moving to that next step with your business.
So good. As you can tell, we have a lot of experience here and they made some really smart choices. Okay, so next up, how do they get people to actually tune in and engage? Let's talk promotion and marketing tactics.
The main thing that I did last year for the free version of the Summit podcast was making sure it had its own landing page, and then I could link to that liberally in all the places. The most effective last year was posting about it in the Summit's pop-up Facebook group. But also, since it was a brand new thing, I was a little bit scattershot last year, still figuring out how to go about it. So this year I'm planning on being much more intentional and mentioning it in the daily emails and including pop-ups on the Summit site, stuff like that, to maximize people being able to access and know that it even exists.
The second year that I did the same summit, so it was the same name, same topic, but new speakers and presentations. So the second year I did it, I included my previous year's presentation as a little freebie gift waiting for them when they signed up to the private podcast. And I could then use that as an incentive for them to actually sign up for the private podcast. Because the first year they had to sign up for the podcast, but the second year I automatically subscribed them and sent them the activation email thingy. And this really helped getting people to subscribe. Plus, that episode of my previous year's presentation had 2 to 4 times the downloads of any other individual presentation, which I think positioned me really well as the host of the event leading up to the rest of the summit. Like, they were able to listen to that as soon as they signed up for the summit. And it wasn't just like, oh, they've signed up and now they've got to wait a week or two until it actually happens. And I had a link to the podcast in every email, in every menu, on every page, just like everywhere I was pushing the podcast. I had a whole email in the welcome sequence about the podcast and the bonus presentation as well. And in 2023, when I did this summit, 10.8% of all summit attendees subscribed to the podcast. So they actually activated it. But so that was 10.8% of all summit attendees in 2023. And in 2024, 16.4% of all summit attendees actually subscribed and activated the podcast. So I was really, really pleased with that increase.
For me, the most successful marketing tactics have definitely been having affiliates share, including the speakers, obviously, for the summit. I mean, that has been the most successful way that we have gotten more exposure and more people signing up. And so it's also one of the most simple things, in my opinion. You know, it's not ads, which can be really helpful for people, but, you know, it's a higher cost and all that good stuff. And it's more complicated. With affiliates, you're literally saying, especially when it's your participants and your summit speakers, you know, hey, like, here's what you can send to your email list. It makes you look really good. These are the reminders of when to share. And that if you have any conversions on this all access pass, or if you're going into a launch where you're selling something, like, you know, if you have any conversions on that, like giving your affiliates a reward or commission for, you know, having those conversions happen, that's the immediate reward. But also, like, being a participant and speaker in the summit makes you look more credible, and it's really great for your business as well. So, like, making it really easy for them to share with their audiences, and then inviting the people who are signing up for the summit to share with their own people and their own audience. That has definitely been the most successful thing, is using our affiliate feature in MemberVault to have people share the events that we run. And because there's urgency, because it's an event, it has been so much more successful than some of our other affiliate things that we've tried to get people to share, just because because it's very clear, like open shut, like this is when to share. There's urgency. You need to share now or you won't be able to share. And then we have always done affiliate prize promotions where it's like you get the commission, but you also get other things for sharing. So like the top 10 affiliates get something, the top, you know, the number 1 affiliate gets something. And then everyone who gets at least like 2 conversions gets something. And so that could be a discount code on one of your courses. It could be an invite to something special, like a pop-up community or a pop-up newsletter or a group call, right? There's lots of different ways to play around with this. And the thing that I would recommend thinking about with affiliates, especially if you're inviting the people who are signing up for your event and your existing audience to share the summit as affiliates, is that they are your most engaged people. Like, they're really, really excited. And so it's a really great opportunity for you to use prizes that build that relationship with them, Kit Talk, and, you know, actually take that into a business relationship of some kind, you know, whether they become a client of yours, they buy your course, or maybe they become a speaker in your next event, right? Like, you're building that relationship with them by giving them really fun next step prizes. And so that has been definitely, bar none, like the number one best way for us to get as many people signing up for our summit as possible.
Love those ideas, especially how they're making it easy for attendees to sign up and listen. Let's keep going with their biggest do's and don'ts when it comes to using private podcasts for events.
I think absolutely the most crucial do for using a private podcast in the context of a summit is having a like teaser or trailer episode on the private podcast, like way ahead of time before registration even opens. And then have it set up and ready to be subscribed to well ahead of the event. I want to make sure that I have it set up before registration even opens so that people can subscribe to it right away. Because especially since my audience is all neurodivergent, a lot of ADHD, people are going to want to sign up right when they're thinking about it. And then come time for the event, like maybe 2 weeks later, they don't have to try to remember and it just shows up in their podcast app. So the only way to do that is to have like a trailer episode, and because otherwise, if you don't have any episodes, obviously people can't sign up. It doesn't exist yet. So that I think is the most crucial part, because people are going to want to subscribe to it ahead of time while they're thinking about it.
So my top tips would definitely be to automatically sign people up and just have the subscribe email sent to them. Like, don't make them sign up again for the podcast. Like, they sign up for the event, they automatically get signed up for the podcast. Give them a reason to actually subscribe that's special and unique. So like I did with the previous year's presentation. Keep reminding that the things you're inviting them to look at are also available in the private podcast feed. So that's something that I have really found with my summits and podcast feeds, is that people continue to sign up for the private podcast feed throughout the summit, even when the overall event signups are slowing. So it might be day 3 of the summit and someone's like, oh, look, there's a podcast feed because they've just reminded me about it. I'm actually going to go sign up to that now and listen to, day 3 and day 4 in the podcast feed or whatever. And my final tip is to be generous and, where possible, give the podcast feed to everyone. I know it was almost a bold move that I was going to reduce all access pass sales potentially, but I don't think that's happened. I want to let people enjoy my events in a way that suits them and suits how they like to consume content. And I think being generous in that way is going to come back manyfold with them having a really positive feelings and experience around your event.
Make sure that you include the subscribe link for your private podcast everywhere. Like, even though it feels repetitive to you, people don't read. And when they are thinking to subscribe, you want it to be really, really easy for them. So, in the welcome email, in the confirmation message once they sign up for the event, in all of the follow-up emails that you send during the event, because there's going to be people who maybe forgot or got busy or, had a distraction when they first signed up for the event and they didn't subscribe to the private podcast feed, or maybe they were like, I don't know if I'm going to listen to this, right? And then in that initial, day 1 of your event, making sure that it's easy for them to be like, oh yeah, I meant to subscribe to this. And so having that direct link to subscribe is the first thing that I would highly recommend, just to make it real easy for people. And then the second thing, because experience is always one of the areas that I pay the most attention to, is making sure that it's the best possible experience. You're putting all this work into this event, and yes, you're growing your list, but you want to make sure that you're also creating really strong relationships with these new people who are joining your email list. And so giving them options to consume. So what we've seen is that there's a lot of people who love having the private podcast feed, but there's also a lot of people that like to consume the content via embedded audio players from Hello Audio in the content. So we pair really well Member Vault and Hello Audio. The embeddable player looks so good in the Member Vault lessons. And so that has been, in terms of the feedback that we've received, people really like having that. And then also having the transcript right underneath so that they can be listening to via the embedded podcast player in the lesson, but also kind of reading through the transcript. And it's funny because I personally am a private podcast feed person. I listen to it on my walks. I have 3 little kids. So that is my time, is when I'm out for my walk, and I can 2x it. And so for me, I absolutely love private podcast feeds. But there are people who want to consume it in a different way, or maybe they listen in the car via the private podcast feed that they've subscribed to, but they want to be able to kind of scrub through via the embedded audio player later when they're actually wanting to take action on the thing. And so it's been really interesting to me in terms of how people consume that content. And so it's just a really good idea to have multiple ways. And Hello Audio makes it really easy to have the private podcast feed, but then also have those embedded audio players, which you could put on an invisible page, or if you have a course platform, you could put it inside of the lesson and embed it. And so that has been really huge. And then of course, also having those transcripts. So those are really the biggest things. And then Little things like making sure in the description and in the show notes of your private podcast feed, you have a link back to wherever all the content for the summit lives. So again, it's just real easy for people to, go from step 1 to step 2 to step 3 and not have to like dig for links. So you want to make sure that it's really easy for people to access the content and for them to consume it in different ways.
And now we're on a final round. Let's hear how each of them is thinking about evolving and expanding their strategies with private podcast in the future.
This year, I'm planning on incorporating some sponsor stuff in the private podcast, not as like ad spots or anything like that. I'm planning to do a kind of mini interview series with the sponsors that I'm really, really excited about. It's a total experiment, but I am really excited about kind of getting like fun with the sponsors and incorporating them into the private podcast version of the summit. I think it's going to be really fun, but that's going to be a total experiment. So I'll let you know how it goes.
So my next summity style event, I'm actually planning to have a replay weekend for 3 days. So it's a 4-day event. Each day, the presentations are there for 24 hours, and I'm going to have the free private podcast feed option again. But then I'm planning to have this replay weekend where all the presentations open back up for 3 days. And I'm going to heavily be pushing the podcast in that time, because with summits, I want people to buy the all access pass. But more than that, I want to get my speakers and my sponsors in front of and listened to by as many attendees as possible. Like, for me, that's what really makes a great collaborative event.
In terms of the future, I have a lot of different ideas that I want to play around with as it comes to private podcasts, both for summits and then just other events, just because, again, like I said, for affiliates, I feel like having them share event-based products or event-based things that people can sign up for have been the most successful way to encourage affiliates to share. And so I want to make sure that we are regularly doing something that we are giving our affiliates to share. And for me, like I've said before, private podcasts are such a great way for people to consume the content and then take action that I will always include some aspect of a private podcast. So I'm kind of noodling on a pop-up newsletter. I'm also considering my next summit topic. And I'll probably, when I run my next summit, and really pretty much anything where I have a private podcast component, I'll be doing asynchronous submission from the people that are participating, the speakers, and using MemberVault to do that. And it has just been such a streamlined way to do it and to run these events without having to do a bunch of, interviews and have calls on my calendar and all that good stuff. So I'll definitely keep that the same. And then the format will change. And whether it's a private podcast is maybe a value add and not like the core part of whatever the event is, or it's the main thing. There's so many fun ideas and strategies to really make the most of private podcasts. And if you're curious how I've run my past 3 summits using Hello Audio and MemberVault, I'm actually gifting my low-cost course around running and hosting a low-lift summit using MemberVault and Hello Audio. And I want to give it to you for free. You can go to mblearn.co/Hello Audio to get that. It's usually $19, but you can get it for free as my gift. And it'll show you the different ways that I've run my 3 summits and the things that I would change and the things that I want to do differently. And I keep that updated as I run additional summits. So you'll get to see what I try in the future. And I have so many fun ideas because Hello Audio makes it so easy and it works so well with MemberVault that it's kind of just a no-brainer to include it in my growth strategies.
There you have it, friends. I hope this gave you a ton of ideas for how you can use private podcasts to level up your next summit, bundle, or event. If you want to hear more from today's guests, their full solo episodes and all their links and all the places you can find them on the interwebs are linked in the show notes. If you end up creating or updating your own event-based private podcast after listening to this, let us know. We'd love to hear how you're using it. And remember, this was the last episode in our 5-part Roundup series on how businesses are using private podcasts to nurture, engage, and convert. If you missed any of the earlier episodes, go back and catch them. Each one is packed with real-world examples and strategies from incredible creators. Thanks for listening, and we will see you in the next episode.